He is our fantasy sports expert, but that's not really saying much. He is Sports Illustrated's fantasy sports expert. There, he is Dr. Roto. You can follow him on Twitter at Dr. Roto, DRROTO. Doc, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you?
I think you should be very proud that I am the fantasy expert of Miller and Moulton. I'd like that title.
You are. That's exactly how I tweeted out, Doc. That's exactly how I tweeted out.
No. We're proud. Okay. We're just stunned that you're okay with it. That's all.
No, I'm good with it. I'm very good with it. So my pleasure.
All right, Doc, let's get to tonight's debacle, because there are people who have a Denver Bronco on their roster. I don't know if I'd advise having a Jet on your roster, but if you've got Melvin Gordon and you're trying to figure out what the hell to do, if you have Noah Fant, it's a third-string quarterback. Doc, and I don't have any, but if I'm someone who's playing on Sunday and I got to make a decision tonight, what do you do about any Broncos, or is it just I'll play the Bronco defense and hope?
No, I think you play Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's in a smash spot if there's, if you can call that in this game. He should have 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. The Judy and the fans of the world, that's a rough one. It is, because, do you want to play him in a game that's actually going to be the lowest scoring on the entire slate? Or do you want to wait till Sunday? So I've got Fant in a league. I think it depends on who else you have. If you have anything that's remotely close, I probably would play the other player. The one guy I absolutely would be Gordon. The next guy on my list would be Fant, and the third guy would be Judy. How many times is Brett Rippon going to go deep and take shots down the field? I don't know. Maybe Judy makes a few plays, but the Jets are horrible. I don't even want. This is just could be one of the worst games in NFL history.
And we'll be there.
That's right. Thrilled to be here. Okay. Thrilled to be here. At least we've got a view of the New York City skyline. That's there's something to be said there. Doc, I thought Mark brought up an interesting point right before we went to break. The Tennessee-Pittsburgh game. It's going to be moved. What is that going to mean in fantasy circles? We don't know yet if the game's going to be Monday late afternoon, early evening, or Tuesday late afternoon, early evening. What do you think ultimately is going to happen with that game from a fantasy standpoint?
Well, look, I think this is what we had expected probably from week one, and it's happening now. So now we figure out the blueprint moving forward. I've been saying to everybody that I am praying for a Monday game. And the reason why is we're used to Monday games. We get it. There's a Monday Night Football, so there's a second Monday night game. And, week one, we saw that, and people can totally deal with that. So that's obviously what I'm hoping happens. If it's a Tuesday game, well, I still think it's going to count as part of week 4, which doesn't affect this week, but it does in a couple of ways. One, now if you have anybody on Pittsburgh or Tennessee and you choose to play them, you have no other options, right? Because if you wait until Tuesday and somebody doesn't play, let's say Deontay Johnson has got a concussion. If he doesn't play, well, then you got nobody else. And then you're stuck with a big fat zero, and nobody wants the zero. Secondly, many leagues run waivers on Tuesday night. Now, all of a sudden, if they're playing a game on Tuesday night and you're running waivers, it just complicates things just a little bit more. And sometimes sites don't update properly until the next day. So now commissioners that have to go in and change things. It just will make life a lot easier if they can play on Monday. So that's what I'm rooting for.
Boy, that's a great point on waivers. I didn't even think about that, Doc, and that is an excellent point. I will say this. I was reading a lot of things, fantasy people and different things. If your site isn't ready for this and screw up next week, then you need to find a new site, because they've only had 8 months to figure out what the hell was going on and be prepared for things like this. So hopefully...
By the way, sites right now are putting these guys down as a buy. It's not a buy, right? We don't know that.
Right.
So I think that's a little, when sites are doing that, it's like, well, will they re-update it? I think sites should wait till the very last second to do anything right now until we know. But I know this. I know that Mike Tomlin said basically on Twitter, and he said it to a guy who covers the Steelers, they are expecting to play on Monday.
All right, let's get to your questions. 479-5551, 479-5551. The David Moulton on Twitter. Twitch, you guys know the routine. I'm not even going to tell you what to do because if you don't know by now, you've been doing it wrong. Let's go to the games. PPR, take one. Gallup, Gage, Claypool. Full point PPR.
Well, I mean, that's a tough one. First of all, Claypool, as we just said, you're waiting until, late Monday. So I don't know if you could do that. What if Deontay Johnson plays? Gallup is going to play reasonably well, but he's not going to have the game that he did last week. I mean, don't go back there thinking you're getting lightning in a bottle twice. And Gage, do we even know if he's playing yet? I don't know if that's 100% sure. So I think we have to go Gallup there.
Brian via Twitter sent in this question: full PPR, T. Higgins or Robbie Anderson?
You play Robbie Anderson this week. Okay. The Cardinals secondary is not very good. Okay. Patrick Peterson's lost a step. Drake Kirkpatrick's never had a step to lose. I think you'd go with him for sure. I think T. Higgins is going to eventually be a very, very good player in this league. And last week he was in a smash spot. This week I don't think he is.
Back to the questions for this week. This one says, I don't think I'd be asking this year, but I'm starting to lean Rodgers over Jackson. Who are you starting? I'm jealous is what I am.
Yeah, you start Lamar Jackson this week, and look, you can't go wrong. First of all, Rodgers playing Atlanta, he's going to have a great day. But I don't think you sit Lamar Jackson. Firstly, you don't sit him ever. And I know he had the worst game that he could possibly have. But it always seems like Jackson plays his worst when he's behind. When the team's ahead, he plays very well. You think they're going to be behind against Washington? I don't think so. I think this is one of those. I think you can get Jackson at the lowest ownership ever on DFS slates, especially on DraftKings, because people don't want to pay that after what they saw. But if you don't think that they're going to win something like 38-7, they totally will be.
Matt has a quarterback question. He sent it in via the Twitch chat room. Goff or Stafford?
Yeah, you're not playing Goff this week. And I know it seems like it's a good spot for him, but this is what the Rams have been doing is they run the football a ton. Really, they run almost more than anybody else in the NFL. Now, if the Rams are losing, they're going to start throwing. But are they going to be losing to the Giants? No, and the Giants can't stop the run. So Darrell Henderson's going to have a good week. So you absolutely play Stafford, who will have to throw the ball, because as opposed to last week, where game flow dictated that they were winning and they gave the ball to Adrian Peterson, that won't happen this week.
I do think Stafford's prepped to have a really good game. That New Orleans defense has not been terrific, and there are some opportunities for Matt Stafford to get loose this week. Pick 2 out of the 3, Mark Ingram, Keenan Allen, Mike Davis.
I think you're playing Keenan Allen and Mike Davis. I mean, the problem with Keenan Allen is that the Buccaneers, Carlton Davis is a very good cornerback. He's very good. You're 100% playing Mike Davis, so let's not even talk about that. So now when you're looking at Allen versus Mark Ingram, look, I told you, Lamar Jackson's going to have a day. I think Hollywood Brown finally gets into the end zone. I think Mark Andrews gets into the end zone. So if they're winning by 31-3, doesn't it feel like a J.K. Dobbins second half? Or Gus Edwards or something like that. So, as much as I don't like Allen's matchup, I really can't trust Ingram anymore.
Hatch Thunder submitted this question: which tight end do you like, Hayden Hurst or Mo Alley Cox?
I do like Hayden Hurst. Green Bay is really bad against the tight end, and I think Hurst will have a day. I think Gage probably doesn't play, and they've got to get Hurst more involved in the offense. Now, I like Mo Alley Cox, I do, but I think Jack Doyle will resurface at some point this week.
And looking at tight ends, I think Hawkinson's a great play for Detroit. The Saints are terrible against tight ends. I think there's a few good plays out there as well when you look at the tight end. I don't know what you're seeing, Roto, but I love TJ this week as well.
I like Hawkinson. I like Mike Gesicki. If Jamal Adams is out, he should dominate there. The only reason that nobody dominates against the Seahawks is because of Jamal Adams. So I like Gesicki. I like Hunter Henry as well. You've got to think that the Buccaneers will be covering the receivers. I think Henry's been, roaming over the middle. And what I like about Hunter Henry is he has a very high floor, right? And, last week, all the good tight ends didn't have really good weeks. I mean, Tyler Croft got 2 touchdowns. All these guys you don't even know got touchdowns. But Henry produces week in, week out. So I'm with you on Hawkinson. I like Gesicki. I like Hunter Henry.
Speaking of when you go Gesicki, speaking of the Dolphins, Roto, how many Dolphins would you play this week? Because my sleeper's Preston Williams because it's Seattle in this banged up secondary. I'll go this way. Who's your sleeper and how many Dolphins are you loading up on this week?
Yeah, I think you can run with the Dolphins, certainly in both seasonal and TFS. I think Fitzpatrick's in play. I think Gaskin's in play. I think Parker and Williams and Gesicki are all in play. I do. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And, is this going to be the same track meet as the Cowboy Seahawk game? Probably not. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not Dak Prescott, but this still should be if you were ever going to play Fitz, ever, this would be the week to play him.
Joe Psychotic sent in this question. First off, do you have an update on Julio Jones? He's worried he could be stuck without a wide receiver if he's out on Monday.
Yeah, I don't have an update. I mean, I think he's going to play, but I don't know for sure. What I would probably do is find another receiver and hedge my bet in that game. That's probably the best way to do it. Or in this case, he's probably lucky. Joe can get somebody from Pittsburgh or Tennessee, get one of those guys, pick up an Adam Humphries, and then wait as long as possible, and then flip somebody else. That's how I'd go about doing it.
NFL Week 4, getting your fantasy questions with Dr. Roto. There have been. How often do you get into trends, if you will? When do you start looking at the fantasy points against, if you will? It's a 3-week sample, and right now we know that Seattle's receiver, if you're a receiver playing against Seattle, you're going to do well. But these don't always hold true for the seasons. How do you try to break down what teams are doing defensively as you try to match up, particularly in DFS and even for your bench guys in your seasonal leagues?
Well, look, points against is something I always look at, even from week 3 on. But I think you have to remember certain things. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that I don't know, the Houston Texans are the best team in the NFL against opposing tight ends, right? Let's just say that. But let's see who they played the first 3 weeks. Well, if they played the Steelers and they didn't use Ebron, but I know they did, I'm just giving an example, and they played another team that didn't have a good tight end, and they played another team for 3 weeks that didn't have good tight ends, well, obviously, they're the best in the league. So you have to look at that a little bit more closely. Now, if a team is the worst in the league, more often than not, the first 3 weeks they played, they were bad each time. So you're not necessarily as bad as you were in the first 3 weeks or as good as you were in the first 3 weeks. So you got to be a little careful there.
479-5551, 479-5551, Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. Any questions that you may have for Dr. Roto, he'll be with us for another handful of minutes. Have you made a decision yet, Roto, on somebody that you played a lot that you've already decided, okay, you know what, this was a mistake. I'm dumping this guy. And or have you picked somebody up in which you wanted when it was time to draft that you didn't get, and now you have a chance to get them, and turns out your hunch was right?
Well, I think that my biggest mistake right now seems to be Bryan Edwards from the Raiders, who I thought was going to be their top receiver this year. And that just doesn't seem like it's happening. I mean, I like the player, and I think he will emerge at some point. But even when he was playing, it was like Ruggs and Edwards on some sets, and then they'd come out and Zay Jones and Aguilar would be on different sets. So look, I cut him this week. I cut him everywhere. If he resurfaces week 8 or 9 and he starts playing better, then, I'll lose out on that one. I mean, I'm sure the player's good, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing. So as much as I want to hold, I got to cut bait and move on. And, this week I'm starting to pick up, these wide receivers who I like with big upside. And, so I've discussed them before. T. Higgins, Chase Claypool. I'll give you a name of another guy that everybody down here should know pretty well, a guy named Gabriel Davis from UCF. I really like him. John Brown, not 100%, dealing with a calf injury. And Davis is a very, very good receiver. He played
catch
really well last week.
Great catch against the Dolphins. My goodness.
Yeah. So I think he's in a good spot.
Well, and that kind of answered one of the questions we had of people you're looking at under the radar to pick up and stash until later. That's 3 right there for you. Roto, who is your sleeper of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to stay with that with the Raiders game, and I'm going to look at Hunter Renfrow this week. The Bills have not covered the slot receiver very well, and we saw what Cooper Kupp did last week.
Monster game.
Yeah, so we've seen what Isaiah Ford did. We've seen what the slot receivers do to the Bills. Now the Bills cover the tight end very well. Darren Waller, not really a great play this week. So I'd be very judicious in using him. I'm not telling you to bench him. I'm just telling you that I don't like the play this week. I do like Josh Jacobs. I think he's in a good spot. Now, Ruggs going to be out. Edwards going to be out. So, I mean, Derek Carr's talking up Nelson Aguilar. When you start doing that, then you know to get Hunter Renfrow in your lineup.
By the way, to his point, Cooper Kupp 10 targets last week, and you look at Cole had 9 targets when they played, or Ford rather had 9 targets. So it is a guy that I think if is out there. Justin Jefferson had a big week last week. There's a chance he could do it again this week, because I think the matchup is there as the Minnesota Vikings are playing the Texans. I think that's another guy. If he's out there, I would be going after him if he's available. Are you in agreement with that, Doc?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously you put him on your team, and it's so weird that I've been talking about Justin Jefferson for the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
So I mean, I beg you guys, please subscribe to SI.com, the Football Plus product. I mean, every week I've been begging people, whether it's on our podcast or on my articles, to pick up Justin Jefferson, and you need to. I mean, he's a difference maker. That being said, I like him this week, but I think his ownership, especially in DFS, is going to be a little bit higher. Dalvin Cooks is going to be a little bit higher, which means that Adam Thielen is going to be a little bit lower, and that's where I want to strike, right there.
Roto, you like to talk game flow. I'm intrigued by the Patriots-Chiefs matchup for a variety of reasons, but don't you think New England is going to be able to slow the game down a little bit? First off, defensively, especially early in games, they find ways to get stops. And secondly, they probably can replicate the Chargers game plan of running the ball, controlling the clock. Their quarterback's obviously better than the one the Chargers had 2 weeks ago. There's a part of me that thinks that this is going to be not a big possession game, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to get many more than 10 possessions.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that assessment. And I think it's not out of the question for the Patriots to win this game. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. I think this game could come down to the coin toss. And you think I'm kidding? I'm not. If the Chiefs get an early stop, right, on Cam, and all of a sudden they come in and they march down the field and play well, and I think the key in this game is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's going to have the big game this week. Okay, this is not a Kelsey week. Not a Kelsey week. If they can start playing well, because the Patriots let up a lot of receptions out of the backfield to the running backs. If Edwards-Helaire can get off and all of a sudden they're winning, now the Patriots have to play a game with Cam Newton. And Cam is much like Lamar Jackson. When he's playing from behind, he gets messy. When Cam's playing ahead, he plays very confidently, right? So it's a different game flow. So I think here, if the Chiefs get out to a lead, you'll see a normal Chiefs game. If the Chiefs are losing, the Patriots are winning, you're going to see a run fest. You're going to see Michelle. You're going to see Burkhead. James White is due back. This kid, Damian Harris, is now back off the IR. Please pick him up. I think he's the most talented guy in the backfield. All right. So I think that the Patriots can slow this down. So I think by halftime, I think we'll know the outcome of this game.
Dallas and Chicago and Cleveland. Someone asking basically about Lamb. I look at this game from the other side. I'm looking at what Browns do I play? Is this an OBJ week? Is this a Landry week? Is this a both week? And as far as Lamb goes, I mean, the Browns have been decent against the pass from a yard standpoint. I don't know who the go-to guy is. The ball's going to be zipped around, but I like where Baker is more than I like where Dak is in this game. What do you think, Doc?
Okay, so I think that there's two possibilities about the game here. Dallas has been very bad stopping the run. So this could easily be a Nick Chubb week. All right, so you got to be careful because Stefanski wants to run the football. I mean, he ran the ball 35 times last week between Hunt and Chubb. So if the game flow goes one direction, Chubb is going to be the big play. I'm telling you that right now, and it becomes a Chubb Kareem Hunt leverage play. Secondly, if Dallas starts winning, though, now all of a sudden it becomes a Beckham and Landry week. Dallas has been terrible covering the slot receiver. Look at what happened last week with Tyler Lockett. I would expect that Jarvis Landry has a big week, and I think Beckham will have as good a week as he possibly can. So I think it can go either way there, and that's why if I'm playing in DFS, I want to play almost two lineups, one with the Browns passing game and one with the Browns running game. For Dallas, Smith is back on the offensive line. I think that makes a huge difference. I like Zeke more this week than ever. And I like Amari Cooper. When it's at home, I like Amari Cooper. When it's on the road, I like Gallup and Lamb.
Cooper did get banged up last week, but Zeke had a bad game last week, and Zeke rarely has two bad games in a row. I love the Zeke play this week.
Yeah,
I also think they'll feed him.
Zeke will be overlooked this week, and that's the beauty. Especially in seasonal, you're playing Zeke because he's Zeke Elliott, right? But in DFS, guys get lower ownership depending on how they did the week before. This guy killed me. Well, if Zeke didn't kill you, all of a sudden his ownership goes from 15% to 9%. That's 6%. That's money in your pocket.
He is Dr. Roto, fantasy expert for Sports Illustrated and fantasy expert for Miller and Moulton. Say it proudly, David. He is our guy, helping you become hopefully Doc's rich friend. Doc, we'll do waivers on Tuesday in the Twitch hour. As always, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Good luck this week, guys. Take care.